On social media outlets, people are always posting their highlight reels. Yet we all know there's nothing better than witnessing a good old train wreck. In today's video, I'm going to share a story of how a mismanaged agency wrecked their business and the nursing home that they were staffing in. This channel is made to help healthcare entrepreneurs start, grow, and sell their companies. Welcome to Passive Workforce. I think it's important to share this story since it's better to learn from the mistakes of others rather than learning from the mistakes that you make yourself. The craziest thing about this story is that both the facility and the agency were at fault, and I can't believe that either of them allowed this to happen. All licensed healthcare providers, whether they are hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, or home care agencies, are required to have regular surveys. And majority of these surveys are conducted by either the State Department of Health or an accreditation body. So what happened in this particular story is that the accreditation body came to do their regular survey. These surveys happen every 2 to 3 years, and everybody in a healthcare facility is on high alert when they're being surveyed. Because when the accreditation body comes, if you fail your survey, you have the potential of being closed down. So if you've ever worked in a hospital or nursing facility and JCAHO's in the building, JCAHO is one of their accreditation bodies, everybody is on edge because they know that the performance in this survey is going to dictate their reimbursement rates and whether or not they're going to be able to keep their contracts in place or even keep their license to operate and function. So this particular facility was having their JCAHO audit, and they were using quite a bit of agency nurses. In fact, about 75% of their workforce were coming from agencies. So they were heavily dependent on working with third parties to fill their staffing gaps. How did this happen? Hey, I have no idea, but that's what they were doing. So as the accreditation team came through the building, they are actually going to request a few things from the facility during the survey. They're going to request their current census and roster, and they're going to request the roster and census, or the roster, their employee roster. And what they're going to do with those rosters is they're going to select what files they want to review, whether it's a patient's chart or an employee record. So they went around and they were kind of picking out employees that were working on the floor. And of course, the accreditation bodies are a little savvy and know where the mistakes may be. So they saw that several people were from a certain agency and they wanted to see the files of those agency nurses. And that's where all hell broke loose. So what happened is that this facility wasn't maintaining records for those agency nurses inside their facility. So they contacted the agency and said, hey, JCAHO's in the building. They're pulling your staff off the floor and they want to see the records for those particular employees. Now, what you need to maintain compliance with state regs is you need to have an application. The employees need to be legal to work in the United States. They should be their documentation to support that. So their driver's license, US passport, birth certificate, social security card, all these things that prove that this person is legal and eligible to work in the US. They also want you to have an up-to-date physical. And that means a physical dated in the past year that shows proof of immunization. And if it's COVID era, proof of a COVID vaccine. You're going to want their Hep B vaccinations or declination forms. They're going to want everything that shows that this person is healthy and not carrying any sort of communicable disease. That includes your TB testing. So that's just the physical portion. The file should also include their credentials, meaning their nursing license, proof that it was verified, background checks, in some states, drug screening. All of this should be in that particular employee's HR file. So when JCAHO asks to see the file on these agency nurses, the director of nursing contacted the agency and said, hey, I need these records. And guess what? The agency didn't have them either. How could something like this happen? They never established what was supposed to be provided when an agency nurse came into their building. A well-run facility that uses agencies, they're going to know what is supposed to be on their list. And before sending anybody to that facility, that employee must be cleared. So you as the agency should have a checklist that says facility A requires all of these documents. to meet their compliance standards, which of course are going to be there to meet the state standards. And if you cannot produce that for them before placing them, then you might run this sort of risk. Now, this story goes a little bit deeper because not only were they not able to produce the file, but they didn't have records on all of these employees. And they were literally just recruiting and hiring nurses without verifying their credentials, without verifying their skill set. And they even ran the risk of having people placed that weren't even licensed to be working. Now, this is a complete shit show, to be quite honest. And it was totally avoidable. And it was totally avoidable if the facility itself had a good functioning operation for working with agencies, or if the agency maintained these records internally. Let's just say that this facility didn't have a good system for tracking employee records, but the agency did. They would have been able to bail this facility out by being able to provide all the records as requested. But since the facility wasn't able to produce the records and the agency wasn't able to produce the records, this equaled chaos in this survey and really put them at risk of being closed down. Needless to say, that agency lost its contract, which opened the doors for other agencies to come in, and that facility got dinged in major deficiencies during their survey. Now, those surveys are usually available to the public, and to have that as a public-facing thing is going to hurt future business. So this facility has now been going through kind of a revamping, and that they're still working with agencies, but they have a strict policy on what is required from the agencies before letting any of their nurses into the building. Imagine if one of those nurses was working with active tuberculosis and was spreading TB within the facility. What sort of damage could be done? Or if some of those nurses were illegals and not even registered to work in the United States. Maybe they were there on a H-1B visa that expired, and now they're an illegal working in the country. Or even worse, let's just say that they were a nurse or an LPN that was being staffed as an RN without having RN credentials. And it was discovered that this person is not even a registered nurse and eligible to be working in the position that they were in, doing the sort of treatments that they were supposed to be doing. These are the sort of things that do happen in this industry, and you need to be cognizant of that and ahead of that so you aren't one of these agencies that does the unthinkable. And if you get caught doing that, it's going to potentially be criminal charges. It could be reimbursing funds to a state or federal agency. It could get really, really bad for you. It could really be the end of your business. So you want to be careful with how you go about maintaining your records and what sort of expectation the facility has of you and you have of them. Again, if you're really running your operation well, you're going to be tracking employee records internally so that when somebody's physical expires, you're renewing their physical and sending that to the facility before the facility even asks you, and that you're maintaining those records so that even if the documents in that facility expire and the surveyor comes in, that facility could call you frantically and you have the physical that they need. Here's what you need to take away from this story. 1, have a good system for onboarding and managing employee records. When running a staffing agency, you're going to want to make sure that you have some sort of software system or internal system for tracking all your employees' records and the expiration dates of their documents. So if you have any employee, remember their personal identification, which is required for them to work in the United States, something like a passport or a driver's license, those documents have an expiration date. So you want to make sure that that personal ID has an expiration date field that you're able to track and get ahead of so that when it is expiring, you're able to request it, update it, and share it with whoever you're staffing. You want to have the same sort of thing in place for any document that does expire. So if it's their physical, if it's their license, their actual nursing license, or their continuing education credits, or their CPR certification, all of these documents that make up their profile are going to have an expiration date, and you need a system that can track it. We've developed our own internal software called OnTime ITS that we use in healthcare staffing, home healthcare, and we also license out to social adult daycares. And in this software is a section for employee records, and we're able to track those employee records, produce reports showing us who's expiring within the next 30 days. So prior to getting to the expiration date and ever falling out of compliance, you're able to track down those employees, know exactly what's expiring, and be able to get ahead of it by getting those employees to update their records so that you never run the risk of having someone on the job past their compliance point. 2, when onboarding a new facility, accept their internal requirements for maintaining employee record compliance. Remember, the representative you contracted with may not know. However, someone in their HR department should know. If no one knows in that facility, contact your state's Department of Health and ask them, what will you need to maintain compliance? Since we consult in healthcare staffing, we help some people start their businesses, but we do consult others who are already in business. And it's really surprising how many of them don't have a clear system or even a good idea as to what compliance of records really entails. And that's really surprising and concerning to me. There's a lot of people who get into this space because there's a potential to make money. But if they've never worked in human resources or ever owned and managed a facility, this is gonna just be a gap. If you're one of those people, I highly recommend that you get familiar with your state regs concerning licensed facilities. Most of the states that do license nursing homes, hospitals, home care agencies, and staffing agencies, the facilities that do have to be licensed also have regulatory mandates on what they need to meet to maintain employee records and employee compliance. So if you're not able to work with a consultant like our company that's going to advise you exactly on what should be included in your personnel records, then you're going to need to take this step on your own to start studying the regulations and knowing what makes a compliant chart. Fortunately for you, this is a service that we do provide, and we can actually go through your records, go through your state regs, and make sure that you're actually assembling those records in a good way, and that you have the systems like our software to keep you ahead of the game and cause you to be in compliance at all times so that you never run the risk of losing a major contract because you just weren't tracking dates. 3, consider getting JCO accredited. Some facilities may even require it, and it will help you stay on top of your processes so you don't end up losing a major contract from sheer negligence. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember, our team is always on standby, ready to help you start, grow, and sell your healthcare company. Until the next one, take care.